Spider-Man has always been the kind of character that many people wish they could be. The idea of freely swinging around the city has captivated audiences since the character's creation, leaving fans wishing that they could experience the freedom for themselves. And what better way of letting fans experience the thrill of being Spider-Man than through video games? How's it going, everyone? My name is Sebastian, and in honor of the upcoming release of Marvel's Spider-Man, I thought it'd be fun to look back at the history of 3D Spider-Man games by playing through each one and talking a bit about them along the way. So join me on my journey towards Marvel's Spider-Man as we begin Spider-Man. Often referred to as Spider-Man 2000, this game was made by Neversoft Entertainment, the studio known for creating the Tony Hawk Pro Skater series, and who to this day has the most badass opening animation for their studio logo ever. Jumping into this game, you're immediately greeted by this amazing remix of the classic 60s Spider-Man theme song, setting the tone for the adventure you're about to go on as a fun comic booky experience, unlike any that has ever come before it. Before we get into the actual game, I have to mention the best feature of the game, and that is repeatedly hovering over the Kid Mode option.
Kid Mode!
Kid Mode!
Kid Mode! Kid Mode!
Kid Mode! Kid Mode!
Oh, wait. I was supposed to talk about the actual game at some point, huh? Our journey starts with a reformed Otto Octavius at a press conference, showing off his latest inventions to the world. Peter's in the crowd, I'm not really sure why. Maybe he's there for the bugle, or maybe it's just because he likes science stuff, you know? It's not really ever explained, but maybe... Look, everyone look, it's Spider-Man, look! Wait, what? Spider-Man? But Peter's supposed to be Spider-Man, and he's in the audience. So, this totally real Spider-Man is taking off with Octavius' creations, and Eddie Brock takes this opportunity to take some pictures of it for the Bugle, proving once and for all that Spider-Man is a menace. But Imposter Spider-Man isn't having any of it, and destroys Eddie's camera on his way out. Eddie starts freaking out about it, and is worried about Jameson firing him, so Eddie loses control and the symbiote takes over, turning him into Venom. At this point, we see mysterious silhouettes of the villains behind all this, and they are absolutely impossible to distinguish who they could be. I mean, look at these. There's no way you could ever guess who they are. God, why do they have to make it so cryptic? Boy, this is probably going to be quite the twist when we reach the end of this. Anyway, shady, mysterious figure releases his gas throughout the city. It's basically just there as a story excuse to cover up the fact that they couldn't render things that far on the PS1. It's really the equivalent of kryptonite fog from the critically acclaimed Superman 64. Anyway, Spider-Man is off to try and figure out what's going on, put a stop to the villains terrorizing the city, all while clearing his name of the imposter Spider-Man running around. And you as the player will accomplish all of this by exploring various locations around the city and beating up thugs along the way. This game is pretty simple in terms of its core gameplay. You make your way through levels based on New York City, building interiors, sewers, subways, labs, etc. The level variety is actually pretty good. Each level will have you take on unique objectives, and the level designs and layouts are all different enough to keep the game feeling fresh, and have the player taking on new challenges at a well-paced rate. In one of the early levels, you're free to explore a small amount of rooftops at your leisure. Granted, Spider-Man won't shut up about you needing to do the objective.
I need to use my spidey compass to find the bank.
In another level, you get a time limit to get to the Bugle before Scorpion attacks JJ. Later, you'll be chased by the NYPD in an epic chase across the city, where the cops blow up countless homes and workplaces, killing God only knows how many innocent lives in an attempt to catch Spider-Man. Yep, makes sense to me. This is totally a reasonable and sensible reaction to the situation. Good job, guys. Good to know we can always count on our boys in blue to save the day. riding subway trains while being attacked by monsters, going up and down elevator shafts, exploring maze-like sewers, and finding and destroying generators are all some of the things that you can expect to be doing in this game. Honestly, the level and objective variety in this game is surprisingly strong, and at the start of each level you're greeted by these really cool comic book cover style loading screens, with the name of the level and an illustration of what the level's about. It's a really nice detail that I'm really happy they included. The way you'll traverse around these levels is running, jumping, wall crawling, and of course, web swinging. It just wouldn't be a Spider-Man game without it. Unfortunately though, web swinging isn't really something to write home about, since it doesn't really give you the freedom one would hope for when swinging as Spider-Man. Since you can't actually freely swing from webs, you can only really swing when the platform you're swinging to is within a certain distance, usually about 1 or 2 swings away. You can't control the direction you're going in after shooting your web line, and if Spider-Man decides that the thing you're swinging towards is too far away, then I guess you're dead because he won't even make an attempt to swing for it. This mechanic can actually be pretty frustrating at times, whether it's due to Spidey swinging the wrong way or not swinging at all. You also have a web zip, and a more precise web zip that you can use to more quickly and accurately get to specific areas. However, the areas you need to aim at for it to work are pretty unclear, since only certain spots on objects seem to get locked onto. Combat is pretty basic. You have a punch and a kick. You can string these 2 attacks in any order you want, but you're always limited to a 3-hit combo. As far as I can tell, both the punch and the kick do the same amount of damage, so it really doesn't matter what kind of combo you do. I'm assuming the only difference is the range of the attack, since your legs are obviously longer than your arms. But it's hard to tell. For all I know, every attack's hitbox could come out at the exact same distance. With that said, there's really no reason for you to ever change up your combo, since a simple 3 punches or 3 kicks will do. However, I did find myself switching it up every now and then, just for the hell of it and to see some slight variation. Plus, this donkey kick animation is pretty nice. Punching and kicking aren't your only options during combat. Remember, Spider-Man can do anything a spider can, and that includes webs. Webs play a pretty cool role in this game, and they're just the mechanic the game needs to spice up the combat a bit. There are 5 different web-based attacks you can do. By simply pressing the triangle button, you'll shoot a line of web at an enemy and tie them up. Holding longer will tie them up for longer. You can also do various other attacks if you press the web button plus a direction on the D-pad. Triangle plus left will give you web boxing gloves, which will double the damage you do. Up plus triangle will shoot a web ball at a decently far distance. Getting surrounded, well, no problem, because right plus triangle will give you a temporary web dome that you'll eventually explode out of, creating an AoE attack that'll knock down and damage surrounding enemies. Finally, down and triangle will cause Spider-Man to pull faraway enemies towards him. All of these web-based moves can also be used with flame webbing, which is a power-up that you can find in certain levels, and is really useful against a symbiote enemy type. Speaking of power-ups, you can also pick up spider armor, which will give you a shield over your regular health bar. All these web-based attacks are really cool and can be really useful in certain situations, but they are by no means unlimited. Your mechanical web shooters can actually run out of web fluid in this game. You can get by any section of the game without having the web fluid, but having the option to buff your attack or quickly shield yourself can be the key to get you out of a sticky situation. To replenish your webs, you'll have to collect blue spiders that are scattered throughout the levels. White spiders can also replenish your health. However, an easier way to replenish both of these is actually dying. Death in this game is extremely forgiving. There are no lives to lose, and respawning will grant you full health and 7 web cartridges, so sometimes death is actually beneficial. Really, the only thing you lose is some progress, but honestly, the checkpoint system in this game is pretty generous, though there's really nothing to be afraid of if you die, so you're more than welcome to play the game at your own pace. On top of all that, the game is actually kind of frustratingly unfair and difficult at points, so the fact that dying is so forgiving is a really good thing. The cause of most of the game's frustration comes from the controls. It's by no means the worst controlling PS1 game I've ever played, but it does have some minor things that could have been improved. Aside from the web dome move, there's no defense option in combat. The most you can do is awkwardly jump away, but that doesn't really feel good as a defense. Also, your combos oftentimes won't stun enemies long enough for you to follow up with anything. The enemy's recovery from getting hit is much faster than Spider-Man's recovery from doing the combo, which leads you to getting hit immediately after attacking. Taking on more than one enemy at a time can also be annoying, so stealthing around is a pretty valid strategy. When you're not going up against waves of generic enemies, you'll be facing off against many of Spider-Man's worst enemies in pretty well-designed boss fights. Each boss fight has its own mechanic and strategy to beat, and each is really unique from the last, so I appreciate the thought that went into making each one of these feel right for the character you're fighting. Starting off with Scorpion, who you fight while trying to protect Jameson. During the fight, Scorpion is more interested in killing Jameson than he is Spider-Man, so you have to distract Scorpion while Jameson finds places to hide, and continue to attack him while he's preoccupied looking for him. I think this fight is a pretty neat throwback to Scorpion's origin, and how JJ is the reason for Scorpion being the way he is. We also have a fight with Rhino, which involves hitting him while he's stuck in a wall, or leading him to run into exploding barrels or electroconductors. We have a couple cool fights with Venom, where he's camouflaging into the environment, and the second one where he does similar moves, but this time MJ is being lowered into water, and you have to constantly keep turning off the crane that's lowering her. Next we have the Mysterio fight, which is my personal favorite, where he grows into a giant version of himself, and you have to jump between 4 different levels to reach his weak points. Like I said, I really like how much thought was put into each villain's moveset, and making them feel unique from each other. But Spider-Man's Rogue Gallery aren't the only well-known Marvel characters that make an appearance in this game. We also have guest appearances from Black Cat, Johnny Storm, Daredevil, Punisher, and Captain America. But we aren't done with the Marvel references just yet. Around the levels, we'll see things such as the Fantastic Four's Baxter Building, posters with Hulk and Wolverine on them, and billboards advertising companies like Stark Industries and Raxxon. Neversoft even threw in a couple Easter eggs of their own, with some Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 advertisements. And of course, no Marvel property could be complete without a certain cameo. During certain key cutscenes, we get a very nice narration by the one and only Stan Lee.
Welcome, true believers and newcomers alike. Spider-Man co-creator Stan Lee here.
Many of you might not think that the Stan Lee cameo is such a big deal since he cameos in everything nowadays, but I find this Stan Lee cameo to be really cool, since this was back in the day before Stan Lee cameoed in everything. So shout out to Neversoft for having the foresight to include a Stan Lee cameo in this game. And after all that, we've reached the end of the road. We found out that it was Mysterio who was parading around as the imposter Spider-Man, and he told us exactly where his boss was hiding. We make our way through the mysterious evil supervillain's lair, and at the end, we find...
Doc Ock?
What? No, there's no way. He was supposed to be reformed. Wow, this silhouette sure had me fooled. I mean, come on, how is anyone supposed to get that? I mean, come on, this could have been anyone. Anyway, after that absolute shocker of a twist, we start our final boss gauntlet, with Doc Ock, who puts up a shield and swings his mechanical arms around at you. You have to turn off the shield using the buttons that are lowered, so you can get in there and kick his ass. This is probably the easiest fight in the game in my opinion. Next, we're going up against Carnage, who you push into a sonic wave to weaken him enough for you to hurt him. Finally, the two villains combine into meat for Mortal Kombat. Honestly, I don't really like this boss's design. I personally think it's on par with Titan Joker from Arkham Asylum in terms of dumb superhero final boss designs. In terms of the actual fight, however, it's not even really a fight at all. Instead, it's a really cool chase sequence out of the lab before it gets destroyed. Honestly, this part is really intense with the music and lighting. It makes for a really cool ending set piece. Once you're free, Captain America comes to give you and Octavius a ride out of there. The good guys go on to play a game of poker while the bad guys play their own game from a jail cell. I really like how dumb and weird this game's ending is. I think it's the perfect icing on the cake for this fun ride. Another thing I find hilarious is how Mysterio has a picture of a bikini girl up on the wall who's wearing a stupid fishbowl on her head. Like, the idea that Mysterio has a weird fishbowl / spaceman helmet fetish is the funniest thing ever to me. So there we have it, Spider-Man 2000. The overall presentation of the game is really strong, especially for its time. The character models all look great for the PS1. Well, except for Black Cat. Everyone else though looks fantastic. They are all accurately detailed to their comic book counterparts, and are instantly recognizable. I do however wish that Spider-Man's design had its iconic webbing around it. I'm not really sure why he doesn't have it. I mean, it wasn't a technical limitation or anything like that, since the spider armor has the webbing lines around it, and I think it looks great. So not having the webbing on the costume was a strange design choice, but I mean, it looks good regardless, so whatever. And if you aren't okay with the suit design, don't worry, because there are plenty to choose from. You unlock these suits by doing stuff like beating certain bosses, finishing the game on hard, or collecting all the comic books hidden around throughout the levels. Alternatively though, if you don't have the patience or time to do that, but you still want to show them off in a video, you can unlock them all using cheat codes. Like I mentioned at the start of the video, the opening remix of the Spider-Man theme is great, and the musical excellence doesn't stop just at the start menu. The game's soundtrack is really catchy. It's super late 90s, early 2000s sounding rock with the weird futuristic sound mixed into it. It gives me a real Matrix sort of vibe when I listen to it, and it really fits 90s Spider-Man really well. Overall, this is still a really enjoyable game. Sure, certain aspects of it haven't aged super well, but I mean, that's to be expected with a lot of PS1 era games, especially when you consider how many Spider-Man games have come since then, and have changed and improved upon the formula that this game set up. Would I recommend playing this game now? If you're curious to see the first evolution of what a 3D Spider-Man game could be, then sure. Just know that you have to put up with some frustrating controls from time to time, and keep in mind the time that the game came out, but in the moments where the game lacks in its controls, it more than makes up for it with its charm and humor. Seeing all the Marvel references in the game is also a huge bonus. It helps establish the overall world better, and gives you a small peek of the larger Marvel universe outside of just Spider-Man. I had a lot of fun going back to this game, and I know that to this day, it is a lot of people's favorite Spider-Man game, and it's easy to see why. So now let me know what you think of this game. Continue the discussion down in the comments, and let me know all of your experiences with Spider-Man 2000, because I'd love to read what you have to say about it. Thanks for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, I'd greatly appreciate it if you showed your support by leaving a like, sharing it with your friends, or leaving me any feedback that you may have. Subscribe if you aren't already. I hope you all have a great rest of your day or night, depending on when you're watching this video, and with all that said, that's it for me for now, and I'll talk to you all next time.